What man actually needs is not a tensionless state, but rather the striving and struggling for some goal worthy of him. That's Viktor Frankl from Man's Search for Meaning. If you're not familiar with him, Viktor Frankl spent 3 years in a concentration camp. So clearly, this is a man who can claim to understand suffering on a level that pretty much all of us probably could not imagine. So I think he has some insights worth listening to on this topic. His position that he's taking here essentially is there is no such thing as a pain-free life. There's no way, whether you're in a concentration camp or just live a normal life, it doesn't actually change that fundamental truth. There's no way to be out there doing things and not experience pain and suffering, at least at times. You basically have two choices. You can want things and do things and strive for things and hurt because you struggle along the way and not all of it works and sometimes people don't like you for it. Or you cannot do those things and then you can experience the suffering of unfulfillment and disconnection and loneliness rather than the suffering of striving. But it's so easy for us to get into habits and patterns and routines, and even if we know that those things don't feel good and aren't serving us, we can easily convince ourselves that doing something different would be even worse somehow. And so we stay stuck in the same cycles and the same routines that cause us to suffer the same pains over and over and over again because we don't know how to break out of it. I'm going to teach you a really, really simple tool today that I think can help you break out of nearly all of it. Not all of the suffering in and of itself, because we can't break out of all of that, but all of the pointless suffering, all of the pain, all of the stress, all of the drama that doesn't do anything, that adds nothing to your life and that gets you nowhere, and leave just the stuff that actually needs to be there. And the way we're going to do that is with a modified Eisenhower matrix. So an Eisenhower matrix is something we use or can use to prioritize in our day. It's a 2x2 grid, and one axis would be, is this a high priority? Yes or no. The other axis is it urgent? Yes or no. And we start by doing yes, yes things like this is urgent and a high priority and kind of work our way back from there. So this is a modified Eisenhower matrix. It's still going to be a 2x2 yes-no system, but the labels are different. It doesn't matter which one you put where. One axis is going to be, do I think that this thing is worth pursuing? And excuse me. What I mean by that is it's not, do I want this thing in my life? It's, am I willing to pay the price to have it? Because there's many things we would want if they were free, right? And I mean that both financially and in terms of just general skills. I'll give you an example. I'm not a good singer. I'm not even a remotely competent singer. And singing is not something that has a lot of relevance to my life, right? So I'm pretty okay with that. If I woke up tomorrow and I was an amazing singer, if it just happened magically, I wouldn't be mad about that. But I know that because I'm starting from a very low skill level, it would take me a lot of time and a lot of energy and a lot of attention to get to the point where I was even remotely competent. And I just don't think that's a very good use of my resources right now because it's probably never going to be something that's a big part of my life. So it's not that I don't want it, like I wouldn't take this if I could just magically have it. It's I don't want this as in I'm not willing to invest what it would take to get this thing. It's the same thing as if you walked into a store and everything was free and you could literally just take anything you wanted, you'd probably take a lot of stuff, right? But everything in that store has a price tag. And when you look at the thing and then you look at the price tag, sometimes you might think, that's cool, but it's not worth it. I want it, but I'm not willing to pay the price. So that's one. Do I think it is worth pursuing? Yes, I would be willing to pay the price to get this thing, or no. I either actively don't want it or I just don't think it's worth it. The second is, am I currently pursuing it? And that's probably the easier of the questions to answer. Now, I know breaking this down strictly into yes, no might be a little bit limiting. If you're doing nothing to move towards this goal, that's an easy no. If you're working on it every single day and working really hard, that's an easy yes. I know there might be some ambiguity in it. Let's say the thing is fitness and you're like, well, I go on a walk every 2 days. So you are pursuing it, maybe not as hard as you could, but you're not doing nothing either. So I know that the yes-no binary here can be a little tricky. Just give it your best guess as to which category that you think it is best to put this thing in. So everything that you're doing in life, or everything that kind of really matters to you, can fit into one of four categories. I either think it's worth pursuing and I'm pursuing it. I think it's worth pursuing and I'm not pursuing it. I don't think it's worth pursuing and I am pursuing it. Or I don't think it's worth pursuing and I am not pursuing it. So if it's no, I don't think it's worth pursuing, I'm not pursuing it, the product of anything in that section of this matrix is peace. If you're okay with not moving closer to some certain goal in your life, and you are not using any resources to move closer towards that goal in your life, you probably feel a sense of peace with that part of your life. I have peace with my lack of singing ability. I'm also not a good dancer. Doesn't bother me. I have peace with that. I don't really desire to be. And so there's no suffering created by not working on something that you don't think is worth working on. So this is a good outcome. No is a good place to put things. If it's yes, I think it's worth pursuing. No, I'm not pursuing it. The product of anything in that section of your matrix is meaningless suffering, because you're waking up every day wanting this thing, wishing you had it, wishing you were doing it, and then not taking action. And so you're suffering in your own mind because of your desire for this thing, but the suffering produces nothing because you're never getting any closer to it. And so anything in this category, you are essentially torturing yourself. If you want to have a romantic partner, let's say, but you are not doing anything to put yourself out there. You don't leave the house. You're not on any dating apps. You're just suffering in loneliness every day. And unless you're just basically counting on blind chance or luck to change that fact for you. You personally aren't doing anything to change it. If you want to be a psychologist, but you're not currently in school, you're suffering for nothing. You have an unfulfilled desire, a longing for something that you are not moving closer towards. And so that's not going to be less painful tomorrow than it was today. You are essentially allowing yourself to experience that suffering indefinitely. You're making a contract with yourself that I'm going to let this hurt for the rest of my life because I want it, but I won't do it. If you don't think it's worth pursuing, but you are currently pursuing it, the product of that is also meaningless suffering. I know that one might seem weird at first. That might seem like the most confusing category. Why would I be pursuing something that I don't think is worth pursuing? But this actually happens all the time, often because of peer pressure, societal pressure, or parental pressure, or just in general thinking we're supposed to, do the same thing as everybody else, even if we don't really feel like everybody else. The example of this that comes to mind for me, and it's a very low intensity example, but it fits, is my father is he values athletics a lot. He really liked playing sports when he was younger, and so he strongly encouraged us to play sports. He didn't force us, but it was clear like he would be happy if we played sports. I didn't really value sports, but I valued my dad. So for a while I played sports. I did eventually quit, but I remember I have this very specific memory: 8th grade football. 8th grade was just not a good year for me in general. But I remember I hated school. I didn't fit in with anybody. I had no peer group. I wasn't doing well academically. So I'm getting through 7-8 hours of school, and then I have like an hour of football after. And I remember just thinking this is just like icing on the turd cake, basically. Like this is the last thing I want to be doing right now. I get nothing out of this. I don't care about this. It isn't valuable to me. It isn't moving me closer towards any goal. And yet I am consistently spending time, energy, and attention on it. And I was suffering because of that. And that was meaningless suffering. Because even if I got really good at football, which I wasn't anyway, I didn't care. It didn't matter. And we do this with lots of things. Some people go to college or study certain things, because that's what everyone else in their family does. Or some people have kids and really don't want to be parents because they just feel like, well, that's I'm X years old and I have a partner and I can afford it, so I should do this, right? But not everyone wants to. That's not the right path for everybody. So this is actually a very real thing, and I suspect probably everybody listening to this, if you really think about it, you can think of at least one time in your life when you were pursuing something that you didn't think was worth pursuing. It happens all the time, and the product is meaningless suffering. Our fourth category is yes, yes. I do think it is worth pursuing, and I am pursuing it. And the product of items in that category is meaningful suffering. You're still suffering. Now, suffering may not always be the right word. I'm just kind of going with the Frankl quote here because I feel like it's appropriate for this content. I'm not saying it's always like miserable, right? But at bare minimum, you can say it's always work. Because if you're pursuing something, it's work. You're spending time, energy, and attention on doing this thing. And it's probably not always going to feel good, right? There's going to be thankless days when you pursue something. There's going to be times when you work really hard on something and it doesn't work and you don't feel like you're making progress, even though you are pursuing it. There's going to be times people question you, judge you, think less of you. There's all kinds of pain and suffering that comes from pursuing things. It is a hard thing to do. And it's not, just because you feel like you're on track doesn't mean everything magically falls into place and now my life is wonderful because I'm doing the things. It's still really hard. Sometimes it's harder than not doing the things. And that's part of why we might be hesitant to put things into this category. And part of why we experience that first meaningful suffering of, I want this, but I'm not doing it. Because doing it is harder. By definition, doing it is harder, at least on a moment-to-moment, day-to-day energy expenditure basis. But what it produces is meaningful suffering. You are getting somewhere. You are moving somewhere. Your life is being conformed more to what you want it to be through effort and action and value. And that's hard. That's really, really hard, but it does something. So if you want to eliminate meaningless suffering in your life, accepting, as Frankl did, and as I have, that there is no way to just blanket eliminate suffering. And the best we can do is get rid of the suffering that doesn't produce anything. The way that we would do that is move everything in our life out of the yes, no, or no, yes squares in this 2x2 matrix and put everything into either no, no, or yes, yes. If you empty the yes, no, and no, yes squares, your life is minimized that makes no sense. Minimized or devoid, can't be both, they're contradictory, of meaningless suffering. So that's the concept today. Now, how do you do that, right? Easier said than done, of course. I am currently working on this in my own life. I have not mastered this. This is a work in progress thing for me too. What I've been doing is default is no, no. Meaning I'm trying to just basically not care about as many things as possible. I have two reasons for that. One is the world is going in the opposite direction as that, right? There's many reasons for that. You've heard them all a million times before. We don't need to rehash all the smartphones, social media. You get it, I'm sure. We're told to care about more and more things like every day, whether that's causes, whether that's like products, whether that's hobbies. I mean, it's just everything is expanding. Everything is growing. And concurrently, the scope of people's lives is expanding to a degree that at least I personally find overwhelming. And so my way of coping with this madness that I feel is trying to put as many things as possible into no, and saying, I'm going to try to care about the fewest amount of things as possible. Because for one, I just think we're told to care about too many things. I think it's inhuman what we're expected to care about. It's not, our brains can't do it. But the other reason is the fewer things that you have in yes, yes, the better you will be at each of them. And so anything that you put in there, anything you decide, I care about this so much, I have to pursue it. I can't let it go. My life will not be okay if I don't work towards this goal. Everything you put in there dilutes the effort that you can put into everything else that is in there. right? It's kind of like deciding how many kids you want to have. Like you only have so much time, energy, and attention. And so if you have 8 kids, each of them is going to get less individual like attention and effort from, not effort necessarily, but time and attention from you than if you have 2 kids, right? I'm not saying that makes having 2 kids better than having 8 kids, but you can't parent 8 kids the same way you'd parent 2 kids. You're divided much more thinly in that scenario. So the fewer things you have in yes, yes, the more quickly you will make progress towards each of them, the higher ceiling you will be able to reach in each of them. And that is essentially why I've been able to do what I've been able to do. And this isn't like humble bragging or anything, but I do have people ask me sometimes, like, how do you run a private practice, do the business stuff, but still see clients in the private practice, write books, have a YouTube channel, and also like have a family and try to stay in shape? And the answer is because that's all I do. Like I don't have much else in that section. I don't, and I'm not saying there's anything wrong with these. This is 100% individualized, personalized. This is just me telling you specifically exactly what I did. Like, I don't play sports. I don't follow sports anymore. I used to. And I decided it wasn't worth pursuing. I wanted to spend those resources on other things because it wasn't really producing much in my life. And so when you're moving things out of no, yes, and yes, no, try to first put them in no, no. Try to just simplify your life, narrow your scope, and honestly care about as few things as possible because there's just way too much out there and 99% of it is just crap that doesn't mean anything. There's going to be a few things you won't be able to put there. It's like metaphorically, obviously, you try to put it in no, no, and it like bounces out. It's like, no, you can't not care about this. You know, whether that's like singing. Maybe for you it is singing. Like that's the easiest thing for me to put in no, no. But for some people, it's like they could never. Like that's their thing. If you can't get it there, then make it a yes, yes. Because that's what's going to make it easier. The fewer things that you can stop caring about, the easier it will be to actually start pursuing the things that you do care about. So most things in no, no, a handful of things in yes, yes, nothing in the mixed categories. Only go yes, yes if you cannot let it go. If you're like, my life will never be complete if I don't get somewhere with this. And if you can get to the point where you have like 5 things in yes, yes, you can make progress on those because then that's all that really makes sense for you to be doing. Other than obviously just the basic fundamental things we have to do to like stay alive and stuff like that. I don't mean it literally. I mean in terms of like discretionary time and energy. If there's nothing in those other 2 categories, then you are never pointlessly suffering. You are never expending resources on something that doesn't matter to you and that you're eventually going to drop from your life. And you're also not constantly longing for or wishing you had something that you aren't moving any closer to. And that is where meaningless suffering comes from. And we don't have to experience that. It is voluntary and it can be avoided by moving things into no, no, or yes, yes. If you haven't read Man's Search for Meaning, check it out. This is not sponsored content. Like that book has already sold millions of copies. They don't need me to promote it. But it is an incredible read. And I would check it out if you're interested at all in the concept of suffering from someone who has felt it in a way that I certainly will never experience. As always, take care, and I'll see you next time.